Oh, it's playing on YouTube too, so I got you. Andrew, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, buddy. And yourself?
I'm doing well. Let me turn this screen share off. Yeah, so new platform. We are streaming live on X and on YouTube today. So hopefully everybody likes it. That we built this out for. I think it gives it a little a step up above our typical X spaces. So we got our video. We got a special guest we're going to bring up here in a minute. But what do you think about the new platform, man?
Love it. Like, we've been playing around with it. Obviously, some people jumped on last night when we were kind of work out the kinks and the bugs.
Yeah.
But I think moving forward, man, this is going to be great. We're going to have a platform where we can, be a little bit more interactive with people instead of just like an audio. We could obviously dive into, the docs, any infographics, stuff like that. We could even at some point maybe, do some TA charting and stuff like that. So I think it's awesome, man. And I'm going to let you produce because we've already known that, you know what you're doing a lot more than I do. So
just so everybody knows, Andrew and I both have full controls over the production of what we see on screen. So if you see some flashing of the screens, it's because him and I are non-verbally arguing about what should be shown. So
I'm going to put my referral code up. You might try to put yours up, but that's okay.
Oh, speaking of that, yeah, this is just throwing this out here, guys. If you need a referral code to stake your Tel app, you can scan that QR code and it'll get you to the right place. So
what a guy.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about us talking. They hear us all the time on Spaces, right? So thankfully, we have a very special guest today joining us. The mad scientist that has created the association and the documentation to go along with that, the organization, the DAO, the voting structure, everything. And we're going to try to uncover or unpack a little bit of that today, talking directly with the one and only Parker Spann. He is in the house with us. So Parker, welcome, sir.
How are you? Thanks for having me. I'm great. How you doing? How's everybody doing?
We're doing well, man. Doing awesome. Well. So we're so thankful you got a chance to join us. I know everybody's busy these days, so you to afford some time to chat with us in the community, I think it's awesome. So thank you very much.
No, thanks for having me. I've been waiting to jump on and talk with the community about the Telcoin platform, and the decentralized governance model that we've introduced with TGIP1 for a long time. We've been working collectively as a team. I might have my name on the authorship there, but the entire team really worked together to devise this governance institution and this platform model. And so we're all really proud of that. And so before I get into anything, I just want to thank Josh for designing all the websites from Telex across the board, Amir for designing all of the smart contracts related to the governance system and the Telcoin platform architecture, and for really, doing a great job every single day that he comes in. Same with Grant for designing the Telcoin network, along with a ton of editing and authorship surrounding the Telcoin site, TGIP1, Jeff for being the best editor in the world, Tim for the endless conversations we've had, and Paul for his vision and for enabling us with tools and guidance and space and autonomy to build something that we can be really proud of and that we think can scale to the vision that he set out initially. So I won't go too far into the thank yous because it will end up being an Oscar speech. And that's what we're here for. We're here to learn, drive understanding and knowledge about this new system that we proposed, and gain acceptance and consensus across the community in advance of the proposal. So I'm really excited to be here. Thanks again, and let's go through it. So
So right off the bat, Andrew and I want to know. I mean, we've covered some of this in our spaces, over the last couple months since you've released, basically, right? So Andrew and I got the chance to meet in Orlando, and we really, just trying to understand all the complexities and the spaghetti that's thrown out there, right? We bantered back and forth and wondered if we did any justice to that. If you had a chance to hear that and see if we did any justice to what your vision was.
Of course, in getting it right is an ongoing process that we'll continue to do as a community in terms of our understanding, in terms of decisions we make collectively to improve the platform, in terms of performance and sustainability and drive, this global system. If you were to get it all right on day one, I would have said, it just wouldn't have been possible. There's no, I think you guys did a great job, and I appreciate you bringing this to the world and discussing it with the community and forum. So.
Well, we did what we could, but it's an awesome chance to
a lot to go through too, right?
Yeah, it's an awesome chance to get you up, and as the one of the architects, obviously it was a team effort. We also joked about what that whiteboard looked like when you were trying to envision this, right? And look at you're probably looking at it right now. It just is wild lines everywhere, right? And trying to make sure they all connect and operate. But so let's get into it. I mean, I know we're going to have a Q&A session, there at the end. If the community members through each platform can ask questions, we'll be able to see those and highlight some relevant ones. So we want to make sure we filter through, and if it's relevant, we'll tag it, and then hopefully be able to ask you at the end of this. So I know you're limited on time too. So, go ahead.
That sounds great. So I'll start off with just an overview, intro to myself, Telcoin Holdings, what we do, and then get into what's within scope, which is the Telcoin platform and the Telcoin Association. So I'm the chief of strategy in Telcoin Labs, which is the blockchain research and development lab at Telcoin Holdings. We have 3 primary business units that we focus on. The first one is, of course, the Telcoin mobile application, a digital asset wallet that enables users to securely self-custody, transact, exchange their digital assets securely using blockchain networks and DeFi protocols. The second aspect of the business is Telcoin Bank, which we aim to introduce the first regulated bank issuer of a USD stablecoin in the world. So that's our goal with Telcoin Bank, and the mobile app is sort of distribution mechanism for DeFi products and banking products. And those 2 things are kind of out of scope for what we're discussing today. And so I'll sort of delegate that to a further discussion down the road to discuss more Telcoin Holdings day to day. The in-scope aspect of what we're talking about today is the Telcoin platform and association that has been described and delineated on the telcoin.org website on the Telcoin Governance Improvement Proposal 1, which is the proposal to introduce and have the community collectively adopt and ratify the association constitution, as well as the full set of specifications within TGIP1 and on the Telcoin.org website. And the goal of the Telcoin Platform Association is effectively, since day one, always been the same vision. It's to be this blockchain network infrastructure standard and token standard for the telecommunications industry, coordinated by mobile network operators, the broader GSMA, their subscribers. And part of the goal of this is basically to introduce the foundations for this new system to operate in terms of the platform, and then for a communal governance system operating within the association to set the rules for interacting with the platform, and overall to participate as individuals, harvest benefits for producing this comprehensive value chain that we call the Telcoin platform. Mm-hmm. So long story short, blockchain network standard for mobile network operators. The Telcoin Association is the legal entity to enable decentralized governance of that system. And so we're proposing a system in terms of the technological system, the platform, the TEL model, the economic model of the 4 miners across the board, and the governance system that sets rules for those things to interact with each other. And so, that's kind of an overview. And so what's in scope today, Telcoin Platform Association, and we can just jump into the proposal, or if you have any questions about what I just went through.
Yeah, no, we totally agree with your path forward. Andrew and I had spoke at length a couple of nights this week as to what's within the scope of this conversation. And we want to make sure the community, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts on the platform itself, right? But today we kind of want to focus on the governance, the DAO, the voting structure, how you put all that together, how it's all going to work future forward, and then share that with the community. So I know there's a lot of questions, and not there's it's a lot to grasp, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so we, as Andrew and I have went through multiple times and on spaces, just making sure that we can get this out to the community at a level of understanding that, not all of us are neck deep in this stuff, right? So we want to make sure we address those questions too, because some of them are simple in nature, but it from a mindset level and wanting to participate in the voting and all that stuff, I think it's critical that we get all this information out and get these questions asked. So were you trying to share, Parker? I can.
Yep.
Okay. Where I don't see it anymore. Can you try one more time?
Sure.
It popped up there for a second, but now it's gone. So oh, there we go.
How many people do we have on here?
61 so far, at least, that are into
Welcome,
this.
everyone. Thanks for coming out.
Well, 61 on YouTube. I'm not sure. We don't have a count on X, so that's just the 61 on YouTube. So
Yeah,
sounds good. So I went through this a little bit a second ago, but I'll just kind of walk through a summary of this. Basically, the purpose of TGIP1, which is this special purpose one-time proposal meant to serve as the founding governance proposal of the Telcoin Association and to gain adoption by the community for this new economic system, and then to establish it as the system as the network standard for mobile networks. And I'll get into why that's the case, why we're targeting that. And then to decentralize authority, power, control, and responsibilities towards this new system to the Telcoin Association, which is the legal entity representing the interests of MNOs and other stakeholders in Telcoin platform governance. So communal adoption over the new platform, technological, economic, social, political model. And the motivation behind this entire thing is this idea that that mobile network operators globally, are the industry with the most market penetration in terms of users. They have deep local market knowledge, expansive reach, substantial network capital, and other forms of capital across the board. It's the most, as an industry, the most distributed in the world. And when I say mobile network operators, I mean like your cell phone company. Let's say AT&T would be an example. So the motivation behind this, creating this blockchain standard for mobile networks, is they have massive reach, capital, deep knowledge of their local markets. They are the most distributed industry in the world. There are carriers in basically every single country in the world, which is, of course, a great fit for blockchains, which effectively secure property rights on the internet and enable you to create digital goods and services on the internet. So having a decentralized, distributed network is critical to those property rights being intact. So the telecom industry is perfectly suited to secure this network, but also to distribute it. They have unparalleled data center capacity. They're connected to every user effectively in the world, and greater technical know-how than most, especially when it comes to network infrastructure and preventing financial fraud. And financial services has become a massive market movement for the telecommunications industry, because they're really well suited to servicing these customers that they already have with financial services when no banks can get to them. And so we basically have this system globally where the global financial system, you think about all the different types of ways people interact with their payments, in terms of all the different fintechs that are built on top of this ancient infrastructure, et cetera. It's incredibly fragmented. And then on the blockchain side, we got like 2,000 blockchains, and there isn't really any sort of accepted standard for that. Of course, Bitcoin and Ethereum have gained wide acceptance along with some others, but there really isn't some universal blockchain standard that people are coordinating Web3 services like DeFi and distributing to a global consumer base. Most of the customers that are actually in the crypto industry using it are just using centralized exchanges to send their tokens and then have them secure them for them. So this global lack of standard, and then this fragmentation of the existing financial industry, as well as the reach and capital across the board for telecoms, puts them in a really great position to coordinate this blockchain standard. And so we sort of envision this universally adopted, compliant, and decentralized system for DeFi, but then really for digital goods, decentralized services, and ownership that's ubiquitous with the internet and accessible and available to mobile phone users everywhere. So the platform is architected with 3 layers to comprehensively serve as this value chain for DeFi and other Web3 services. It basically takes what already exists informally across the existing blockchain platforms and says, well, there are, of course, validators at the basic level that secure the network, and that's an important stakeholder. But what are the other stakeholders in blockchain services that are important? And at scale, is it likely that they will use services and chains where they have ownership rights, i.e. the ability to harvest TEL issuance, the ability to represent their voices in governance, et cetera? If blockchains are property rights machines on the internet that you can program any way, the idea is that at scale, all of the universally adopted ones will have ownership models that include the entire value chain. So within this new system, we have a mobile application layer, which is a decentralized network of mobile apps that integrate with the Telcoin platform, i.e. Telex and Telcoin network. That's called Telcoin Application Network. Telex, which there are probably tons of participants just on this call that have been actively producing liquid markets and harvesting TEL for at least a couple years now, maybe, I guess, since 2020. It's been a while.
Long time.
And then at the base level, this blockchain network, EVM compatible chain that is designed with scalability in mind, that's secured exclusively by mobile network operators. So you have this value chain for what effectively amounts to mobile access to decentralized financial products and other Web3 goods and services that's sort of coordinated across layers to enable this use case. And the governance model is what empowers each of these actors across the value chain with ownership rights. So the ability to harvest TEL, the ability to have a voice in governance, et cetera. So you have this shared decentralized structure for mobile networks in the broader telecommunications industry that is meant to foster this self-governing ecosystem and align mobile networks, their suppliers, customers, the broader GSMA around the shared blockchain network and token standard and value chain for Web3 services. So it's a product of looking at the various actors, creating a set of rules for them to interact with this platform that's designed for to overtake the global blockchain market. And so, yeah, the objective generally create a blockchain standard from MNOs, decentralize authority and duties to the association from Telcoin Holdings, introduce us a robust blockchain platform that's capable of scaling to meet the demands of every mobile phone user in the world. Community organization, of course, is at the core of this. I've been talking about user ownership for years, but now within this proposal and on the site, we've really defined what that means. It means it's closer to, unlike a corporation, an association. Let's say the difference between a GM, GM, the corporation for creating cars, versus a fishing association that regulates how much fish you can extract from a pond. So yeah, basically decentralized value chain by empowering stakeholders, driving global ecosystem development for this universally accepted infrastructure, and then fulfilling the association's mission, vision, and values that are core to basically setting standards for how people interact with each other and what decisions should be accepted as legitimate. Yeah, so now we can just kind of jump through the Telcoin platform. As I said, it's a platform with 3 layers that are combined, but at the same time, they're interlinked, and the higher layers depend on the lower layers, but they are autonomous in terms of they have their own governance regimes, they have their own set of actors that produces the system, and those services are complementary with the other layers. So Telcoin Network secures property rights for everyone on the platform as the blockchain network, and enables the creation of on-chain goods and services through smart contracts. Telex is the DeFi marketplace layer, and TAN, or Telcoin Application Network, is the mobile app layer.
I was gonna say, if you want to maybe just pause, Parker, and bring up that infographic, because I think usually people, at least especially for me, I'm more of a visual person. If you go down a little bit and just open that up a little, and then we can speak to how the platform works within the existing system with all those different miners and different councils as part of it as well. But
yeah, so at the lowest level, you have Telcoin Network, this blockchain standard. At the higher levels, you have these networks that are built on top of it, 3 infrastructure networks. At the base layer, validators, who are GSMA, mobile network operators, stake Tel for proof of stake consensus, and secure Telcoin Network. They earn Tel gas fees and Tel issuance from each block they secure to the blockchain. Additionally, there's this built-in mechanism that destroys a portion of Tel gas fees each block, similar to EIP 1559 for those who are familiar, except instead of completely destroying them, it regenerates those units back to the Tel treasury. So you can effectively maintain the supply cap while regenerating the extractable supply of Tel for future generations of miners, which is a product of the demand of Telcoin Network block space. So the more users that pay Tel gas fees, the more Tel that is regenerated to the Tel treasury to sustain yield for future miners. Then you have Telex.
The loop that you kind of talk about, that flywheel cycle where, something starts here, which, generates more fees, which creates more adoption, which, again, brings in more liquidity or incentives that can then, keep that robustness of that network continuing to grow and expand. And it kind of continues to go in a circle, but it's expanding outwards, right?
Yeah, I mean, a positive feedback loop between the demand for the system and the sustainability of its native good is how I would effectively define that. And there are tons of positive feedback loops between these subsystems that I can more than happy to explain. Before we get in there, though, I'll just jump in and talk about Telex and TAN, if that's how you want me to continue. Or
yeah. Let's just continue.
I was going to ask Andrew, did you send over our roadmap to Parker or what? Because Parker, you were following along what Andrew and I Andrew did. He spent time highlighting all these bullet points, and you were literally checking every one of them off. So.
Yep. I was just going to say, I don't even have time to ask questions because all the questions that I were planning on asking are kind of being answered as you're going through.
You're nailing it, man. So.
The only thing I will ask was a question specifically on the network that people are asking. They're just asking about the tech stack of what it's going to be built on. I know it's going to be a migration, once the Telcoin network is ready to go. It's been, audited. You got 10 validators and it's live. The migration will begin, which again we'll probably go through at the bottom with the timeline. People were asking what is that built on? Is it built off of Polygon, CDK, or what? Can you go into a little bit more about how that network is going to run and what it's built on?
Sure. So you can think about it as a side chain for Ethereum. It's an EVM compatible proof of stake blockchain. It has its own bridges. It's connected to different EVM chains through bridges, but for the Telcoin platform's purposes, Telcoin Network is the base layer blockchain infrastructure. So it'll serve the same function that Polygon serves today once it's live, once there's sufficient quorum of validators, and once the DeFi protocols, et cetera, are available on Telcoin Network for the other layers to migrate over to. So Telcoin Network is the base layer blockchain for the Telcoin platform.
So everything eventually is going to be migrated to that network.
Well, you have this parallel resource governance system, right? Where the Telex Council could say, let's incentivize markets on Polygon, let's incentivize markets on Ethereum. A Telcoin application network mobile app could have interoperability with all the different networks across the board. And then, so there's this decentralization between the layers actually mitigates risk in a lot of ways, and also enables people to make decisions about where things should be, while incentivizing the usage of Telcoin network through its regeneration mechanism.
Okay, so in the future, it's possible that you might have multiple pools, let's say for Telex on different chains, but all interacting within the Telcoin network.
If you have multiple liquidity pools on different chains, then people on those chains will directly interact with those, unless they're using some sort of cross-chain bridging DEX. So if you're on Telcoin network and a mobile app and there's no liquidity available, perhaps that mobile app will aggregate through cross-chain bridges to enable you to buy those tokens without having to leave the network. But for all intents and purposes, Telcoin network is the platform's blockchain layer.
Depending on that liquidity, it might jump to, say, Polygon because there's more liquidity there. Make that trade, swap those tokens, and then bring it back to the Telcoin network through the mobile app.
Can you restate that?
So if they're making a swap through the app, on the Telcoin application network, through the mobile, and if there's not enough liquidity for whatever asset on the Telcoin network, it might jump or bridge to, say, Polygon to see if there's a pool on Balancer, or if it's going to aggregate through someone like 1inch or something like that, and then it'll effectively make that trade, swap it back, and then back on the Telcoin network, and then through the app.
Sure, that's absolutely feasible. Any number of Telcoin TAN mobile apps, including Telcoin Holdings mobile app, which is for what we've designed, not the only mobile app.
So that's a lot of the back end stuff that most people won't even see. So I just want to highlight that, someone doing.
How about this, Andrew, if you don't mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind, just let me run through this basic overview, and then we can go into more detailed questions. Is that cool?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sounds good. So we're all familiar with Telex, network of liquidity pools on DeFi protocols that enables automated, user-owned, decentralized exchange. That'll grow as the Telex Council determines where to allocate how much TEL, and at scale. Ideally, all three of these networks are primarily on Telcoin network. Today, it's mostly on Polygon. It started off on Ethereum. So there are liquidity miners on Telex who produce liquid trading markets, earn exchange fees, and harvest TEL issuance. Then at the application layer, TAN, there are application developers and there are stakers who are the miners on this level. And the application developers are GSMA members who effectively submit their participation request on the Telcoin forum with business information, and then they're approved by this compliance council, and then they can stake TEL, develop the mobile app that they specified within their proposal, and compete to harvest TEL issuance, as well as vote for council members and in other processes based off of their staked TEL. So you have application developers, liquidity miners, and validators, and you have stakers. And this went live at its most basic level in December of 2022 with the stake and refer program. At this point, it is stakers with its existing users within Telcoin. The Telcoin mobile app can stake their TEL, refer new users, and earn a percentage of their referral fees based off of how much TEL they have staked at the time of the transaction. With the introduction of TGIP1, just like the other miners, stakers will be able to harvest TEL issuance and vote to represent their interests in governance. So you have these four critical producers of blockchain platforms that, unlike the existing regimes, have property rights. They have ownership over the whole value chain of the system. It would be like including DeFi protocol, liquidity miners and developers and active users on Ethereum within its EVM and empowering them with ownership rights. And we basically believe that this is where everything ideally will go, or probably should go, and this is a response to the future developments in the space. Because if you can program ownership across the value chain, which you can with blockchains, as we're demonstrating right now, then why would you choose to develop an app on a chain where you don't have the right to harvest issuance, where you don't have the right to represent your interests, versus one that enables you to do that? And so the Telcoin platform is a market response to a lack of inclusiveness in the ownership of a platform, and
Yeah.
designed around that.
Yeah, real quick, Parker. Andrew and I have talked multiple times about the level of engagement that you can have on the platform itself, down to the refer and stake, which is at its most simplistic use, right? So you have the app, get your referral code to people, have them get the app and do some trading, and you can earn there if liquidity, providing isn't your thing. I mean, so you've really taken a holistic approach at allowing participation across the board. I know there's some, oh, I don't like refer stake and I don't like this, but it's an avenue for people that do like it to participate in the platform and take ownership of that piece of it. So applause on that. I don't know if people realize how much that allows people on ramping themselves into the network itself, right?
Right. I appreciate that. And so at scale, what you effectively have is, just like any platform that is servicing an economic use case, you have volume and adoption, users connecting to use the system. Like when your friend, the first time they said, "Come over, use Venmo with me."
Yep.
So you connect. You have stakers who drive adoption and volume by connecting with their payment networks. You have developers who develop mobile apps for users to securely and intuitively interact with the platform. You have the exchange layer, which enables users to exchange their assets without giving up control of their property. And then you have Telcoin Network, which enables the creation of these networks above them, and then also secures people's ownership and their ability to transfer and their ability to custody. So you have volume and adoption, you have mobile app development, you have marketplace production, and you have property rights security, as well as digital goods and services creation, all built into one decentralized system without having some central owner that is coordinating
Correct.
everything. It's instead decentralized to the community.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Telcoin network, if you go into the telcoin.org documentation, you can really get in and learn about what are the systems involved in Telcoin network, right? You have like the different infrastructure systems across the board, and those are thoroughly described within the stock. So we have an EVM, there's a quality of service mechanism, the consensus mechanism is Bullshark, mempool protocols, Narwhal, et cetera. And I won't get too deep into that stuff because I don't know that it is something that is going to be easily understood. Things like Narwhal and mempool protocols.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's not go into too much of the details of the back end. I think more of the focus, especially for the viewership that we have here, is more kind of front end and understanding kind of from a high level of, how things operate, how things work, and the components as part of it. But like the minutia details, I don't think we need to go into that, because I know it'll go over my head. I don't know about you, Steve.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And that's given the fact that Andrew and I have probably read over this 4 times a piece. So
Fair enough. Yeah. So Intel is used throughout the system by consumers to consume platform resources. So in order to consume block space on Telcoin network, you need to pay with Tel, and it's using an input for each of the 4 miners in production and harvesting processes. So they all stake Tel in some form in order to participate. And this staked Tel it determines both their earning power in production and harvesting processes, as well as their political power in governance with their miner group. And so, yeah, the Tel treasury is this primary source of Tel, primary renewable source of Tel that stores, distributes the bulk of the extractable supply. It serves as that primary source that everything that from which TEL flows through to the other networks to then be allocated by miner councils or harvested by miners, or a mix of both, of course.
And just on that, like the attributes that you have there, like the initial treasury is going to start with 10 billion TEL. And then essentially, if I'm what I'm reading, it's going to be able to use about 10% of that on an annualized basis. Is that the way that it's going to work?
So it's actually set up to automatically, using Sablier streams, distribute TEL at a rate of 10% of its inventory per year to these different infrastructure storage systems across the platform. So there are storage systems on Telcoin application network that are controlled by the TAN Council that distribute TEL to the staking contracts, which developers and stakers harvest from. And the same thing is the case with the other networks. So from this primary source, TEL issuance distributes using Sablier streams, which are just automated payment channels that
Okay.
each block distribute TEL, which is then harvested, or if the miner councils determine to make a decision or to provide for some improvements in terms of planning and financing, they can use that inventory to plan and finance construction, maintenance, et cetera, at their own discretion.
Okay. And the
So
breakdown of that 10% is going to be decided by those different councils in the treasury on how, like, out of the different councils, 10,
sure.
10%
So
of that
it's
10% is going this way, and it's going to go down this avenue, but
yeah, the TEL Treasury is governed by the platform and treasury councils using the TEL IP process,
Mhm.
which is this global decision-making process for things that affect everyone equally across the board. And then the TEL Treasury distributes the quantity that is harvested by developers and stakers to the TAN Council safe, which is then automatically distributed to staking contracts unless changed by the TAN Council. The TEL Treasury distributes automatically to the TELX safe, et cetera, in the Telcoin network, and then also to each council member on a per block basis when they are elected and are given a governance NFT.
okay.
The governance infrastructure, of course, is so you've seen the first, that Council of Rivendell. I hope you guys like that, the name of that.
Big Lord of the Rings fan, love it. I've been loving it. I was actually hoping you guys were going to continue to call it the Rivendell Network, but I'm okay with the Telcoin Network. But maybe do you want to give some
Yeah.
context as to why you guys chose Rivendell? Is there a
Well,
story?
it's interesting. Rivendell is first a code name for Telcoin Network, and obviously, Lord of the Rings has naming rights over Rivendell. It's an elvish world.
Yeah.
If you've watched the Fellowship of the Ring, which I'm sure you have, the place they go to is Rivendell with this like the dwarves, elves,
Yeah.
the hobbits, and man, they all come together to solve their collective problem, which is Sauron, right?
Yep.
And so in our case, there's a sort of metaphor with the Council of Rivendell for these four groups of functionally distinct and heterogeneous actors to come together to conquer the collective action problems that are associated with governing this type of good, which I'll get into in a minute. And so, yeah, if you read through the governance infrastructure, feel free to comment on this proposal. Let me know if you have any questions. It's meant to be an off-chain governance system that enables on-chain actions to happen if necessary. And I'll get into the rationale behind that a little later. But yeah, then there's the communication information system. So telcoin.org is meant to be a handbook for the community to participate, a set of documentation that describes the platform, the products it generates, the users or miners involved in the governance system. And the forum, which we're on right now, is it's an informal proposal mechanism for users to add or to share ideas, to share proposals, to nominate themselves into council member positions, and to review and give feedback on this proposal. The Telcoin Discord, which hasn't been launched yet, will go live once we've approved the system, and I'll share it with everybody at that point in time. It's pretty well documented how those channels work on telcoin.org. And so if you're curious, go ahead and check it out. And of course, over time, the platform Treasury Council can alter which Discord they use, change communication mechanisms, etc. So before I get into this association, I'm going to go into the miners. Oops. So yeah, the economic model for the miners was a logical step prior to the creation of the governance system, and which the Telcoin Association is of course a part of. And so the idea is to create a comprehensive value chain where the entire set of prospective producers of the system have the ability to earn fees, to harvest issuance, and participate in governance. So those are the 4 miners. And I don't know how much you guys want me to go through each of the miner groups.
I would say maybe let's dive in, like just go quick maybe on like validators and developers, because I think based on viewership, like I don't think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be partaking in that, but maybe spend a little bit more time on liquidity and stakers.
That sounds great. So validators are they secure the Telcoin network blockchain, and the group of participants that are eligible to enter that role are GSMA operator, MNOs, so mobile network operators, who are approved by the Compliance Council, and StakeTel for proof of stake consensus, and operate a full node or manage a node on Telcoin network to create blocks, verify them to the blockchain. And they harvest fees and tel issuance, and they propose and vote with other validators in governance based off of their stake tel.
Before you move on, just on the validator side, like I just want to understand how do they like create or manage a node? How is that process done? Like I understand, like they gotta go to the council, they need to be approved, they need to propose, but like once approved, like what's the steps? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, they set up a node and then stake tel, and the requirements for setting up a node and the infrastructure involved in that are in the validator section of the site.
Mm-hmm.
I can go through that, but it might be a little technical.
Okay, yeah, no, don't worry about it. It's just maybe more out of my curiosity than anything else, but
okay. And yeah, so application developers are GSMA members, not exclusively the highest level of membership within the GSMA, which is what validators are. They are any GSMA member, so telecommunications industry specific, adjacent, suppliers to that space, anyone who's a member of the GSMA can participate as an application developer, stake tel, produce mobile apps, and compete to harvest issuance, as well as vote based off of their stake tel compared to other developers. And this is the role that we will become one of any unlimited number of participants in out of the 4 groups. So we won't be participating. Telcoin Holdings, when I say we, and first, I guess before I continue, I should say that I'm not representing Telcoin Holdings opinions right now. These are my opinions, and should not be, taken as the opinion of Telcoin Holdings, the corporation. But our role is going to be deconcentrated from effectively platform leader, developer of all infrastructure, communicator of all changes, provider of information, provider of infrastructure, allocator of tel, to just one participant within 4 different groups that share equal power and control and duties over and within Telcoin platform and its governance. So we're really deconcentrating away Telcoin Holdings' role to just one out of many, participating in one of 4 positions that have power. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. So yeah, this section goes into the various activities and benefits. So validators harvest 200 million tel a year in the first year. Liquidity miners 200 million tel, and stakers, which include corporate stakers, like so corporate users of Telcoin mobile apps who enter another user's referral code and stake tel. They harvest from a flow of 166 million tel a year. And then retail stakers, so individuals like me and you, harvest from a separate flow of tel, 166 million in year one. And we harvest based off of the fees that we've paid each week and the fees that our referred users have paid each week versus others in our group. So how many fees did I pay this week? Plus how many fees did all the people I've referred to the Telcoin app versus all the other individual or retail stakers each week? And so dividing between those two enables both corporate and consumer adoption that we're really trying to spark here, while maintaining them both as one group because they're functionally the same in terms of governance. So yeah, that's how stakers and developers and developers are, that's what we're going into, a harvest 166 million a year, similar to the other participants. And that's based off of our users' referral fees, plus our users' Telex exchange fees and Telcoin network gas fees paid each week versus the other developers who are participating.
Which is basically the proof of stake concept.
So proof of stake is for validators. They stake tel for proof of stake consensus. In this case, they're staking tel for political power and for earning power.
Which is when they ever put a block on the blockchain, the Telcoin network, then they'll earn those rewards.
No, so I mean, kind of. Basically, developers earn based off pro rata, based off of their community of users.
Okay, so if they develop an app and the users are using that app through the network, then they'll get a pro rata based off of the usage through the app that they've developed on top of the network.
And that's calculated by the total referral fees paid to their users, plus the total Telex exchange fees paid by their users, the total Telcoin network gas fees paid by their users versus the other developers each week.
Okay.
So it really it's designed to incentivize the usage of Telex, Telcoin network, and is a way to ensure that developers maintain referral fees for their users, which they could easily just decide not to do, right? Well, we want to ensure that people who are, if they're going to be incentivized to develop on the app, we want to ensure that the users have ownership as well in those apps. And that's why referral fees are counted in. That's why Telex is counted in and Telcoin network, so that you can incentivize the adoption of those important aspects of the system without imposing unnecessary restrictions.
Hey, Parker, we had a pretty good question, and it's kind of relevant as we're speaking of developers and the GSMA, as you brought up. I'm going to show this one and see if you can touch base on it. So are GSMAs hiring, or do they already have crypto-educated folks who are in communication with Telcoin over the next steps and how GSMA gets involved? I know you guys are doing a lot of events that seem to be tied in with GSMA. So how is that all kind of rolling out as you develop this network? Or I don't know if it's even too far where you can't talk about yet, but
I can talk about it. So we were the first, Telcoin Holdings, the first member of the first crypto member of the GSMA back in 2018, and ever since has been working internally with the GSMA to describe and define what their objectives would be in a type of system like this, and then to go out and build it and drive ecosystem development within the GSMA. So I can say that we've had tons of meetings. They're incredibly knowledgeable on the subject, are very tech forward, and focused on servicing their membership. And it's clear to everyone, really. I don't want to say clear to everyone, but it's clear to tons of people who are educated on the subject within the GSMA that blockchain networks and enable them to, at much lower transaction costs, distribute financial products and services to their customers. And so it's an ongoing process of development, but bringing this proposal live, launching the Telcoin Association website, and enabling them to both understand the opportunity set, the system, and how they can participate in terms of the mechanisms and what's required. Those are all live now. And so the real adoption can begin to unfold over time versus before, for the same reason why I wasn't going on different community chats and saying like, let's talk about all this stuff. It's there. Now it's real. The technological systems are ready. The Telcoin governance system technologies and overall processes are in place. And so now it's exciting because we get to talk about this stuff in real time.
Yeah.
It's exciting for us too.
Yeah. So, and then I think we've kind of covered like the platform activities and benefits ad nauseum. So I'll get into the governance system. And this was the hardest part, I would say, in terms of developing a global governance system with 4 different types of user groups involved in producing it that is capable of functioning and being adopted by a global set of institutions and users. So we basically, in creating this governance system, we first recognize that, well, just to start from the very, very beginning, going back and looking at all the various different governance regimes across crypto, we saw a glaring sort of miscalculation or misstep in terms of really understanding what exactly we're governing and what theories we can use from the traditional world of goods and services and governance to apply to blockchain networks. So I think at a fundamental level, most crypto network governance systems have treated crypto networks as these novel things on goods and services that have never had any similarities to existing goods and services. And so they require an entirely new way of looking at the governance challenges and for creating governance systems. And we took a different approach. Our approach is this idea that actually blockchain networks and their tokens do fall within existing typologies of goods and services, and therefore applying frameworks or tools and theories or knowledge to developing that governance system would enable us to build something that could sustain the test of time and is a real fit for what type of good the Telcoin platform is. So like, let's say the production of a car company like GM is really well suited to a private corporation that's with effectively one legal entity, a private corporation managing it, whereas a blockchain network that's produced by all these people across the world, this community of people that has this subtractive benefit that needs to be allocated, and this system that is really difficult to exclude users from, that requires its own type of governance theories and frameworks to develop. And so we saw a big lack effectively in the existing marketplace for saying crypto is just another set of goods and services. So let's apply frameworks and theories from the traditional world of goods and services to make the governance system work. That's how we approach it versus, in my opinion, for the most part, crypto networks are treated as these novel inventions. And so you see these things like, token holder voting on every proposal or fully on-chain governance. What I would describe token holder voting on every proposal as would be like if you went to a fishing association or fishing association, you bought a bunch of fish, you said, I'm taking over. And they're like, that's crazy. You're not going to take over our association. It's a community thing. You can't just buy a bunch of fish. And then when I look at things like fully on-chain governance, a lot of these things they're just based on, I think, foundations that aren't necessarily logical and are missing out on the opportunity to leverage existing frameworks. So like on-chain governance is similar to like a bunch of fishermen governing an association underwater, just because that's the natural characteristics of the pond that they're trying to govern.
Yeah.
So I see those things as errors that have led to numerous market failures. And so we wanted to say, all right, let's go back to first principles, really figure out exactly what is this Telcoin platform and Tel thing on the internet, and what are the best practices for governing that. So the governance framework is based on this idea, a series of basically a school of thought, primarily started by Eleanor Ostrom and her husband Vince Ostrom from the Bloomington School in Indiana. The Ostrom Workshop in Political Theory. And so basically we identified the nature of the good, which there's this typology of goods wherein the distinction between those goods is basically you have subtractability. So if you use one of the goods, let's say you extract one of the tel, you're a miner, you extract tel from the system. Well, that tel that you extract, it subtracts fully from the supply that's available to others. And then, so that's the problem of extraction. That's just the natural condition of tel. And then it's a system that's embedded in the internet, from which it's really difficult to exclude users in. So from using. So it's similar to like a public good like world peace, in that it's really difficult to exclude users. And it is similar to like a private good like bread, in that my usage of it, of one unit that's produced by it, subtraction of the available supply. So there's an entire wealth of knowledge around how do you govern these things called common pool resources in the physical world, and how do you do that with a communal property regime or a communal model for owning the system. And so what we did was we said, okay, let's take the best principles, design principles from the space that Ostrom created, things like clearly defining the boundaries of the resource system or the platform and the ownership rights of it, proportional cost between benefits and costs of the system. So a proportional equivalence between costs and benefits. So, is the amount of tel that XYZ miner harvests equal to the amount of inputs and production that they do? Is the benefit that miner council is trying to develop worth the costs? And then you have collective choice arrangements, which is like having individuals who are affected by the system participate in governance. So we have all four miner groups. Effective monitoring, sanctions should be graduated over time, not you messed up and you're out. Instead, okay, you messed up the first time, you messed up the second time, the third time, etc. They should graduate over time. There need to be conflict resolution mechanisms in place, and the system should have autonomy. It should have the ability, the group of users should have the ability to make their own rules, and those rules should be legally enforceable and recognized. And this is another misstep that you'll see commonly in crypto networks, is there's just this regimeless entity structure on the internet where people have none of the existing protections that they do from operating governance systems in the traditional world. And they're just a group of people that have no protection. So unlimited liability, the inability to represent themselves in legal proceedings or judicial proceedings, the inability to have actually legally enforceable rules. All those things are incredibly important if you're going to scale a global system, and especially important when you're talking about creating a global system for a set of institutions and that are going to look at it and say, well, what's the legal entity structure? Like, how can I participate? If that doesn't exist, I think that it's going to be difficult for any of those systems to really become the standard for an industry. And then the final aspect for governance that we've founded the thing on is this idea of polycentricity. So we have this complex resource system, or the Telcoin platform, with 3 layers, and so you have all of these different organizations that have jurisdictional authority over specific domains, and they collaborate and also fulfill specific functions that collectively cover the full range of governance. So we use a few frameworks that I won't get too deep into, the IAD framework that's also created by Ostrom, and the SES framework to basically with the IAD, we created a set of rules, both constitutional rules, collective rules, and operational rules. And then horizontally, things like harvesting rules, communication rules, and election rules across, and then at the highest level, the ability to change the governance system. So the IID framework served as a great tool to actually articulate those rules and articulate the attributes of the actors, et cetera. And then the SES framework is basically a set of variables that can be found across diverse use cases that for similar goods and services. And so we went into the SES framework, took the full set of variables to describe the top level, which is the resource system or the platform, took all of those variables and described them. The resource products or units like TEL, block space, liquidity pools, took all the variables from the SES framework to describe those. Did the same thing with actors in the governance system, et cetera. So those two frameworks kind of set up, especially with the SES framework, you'll see if you look into it and go look at the website, it'll be very clear why those variables describing each of those sections is there and what they mean.
Obviously, a lot of work has gone into this. Like, I can imagine the amount of research you guys have had to do to kind of put all of these pieces together. Like, you're talking about components from one aspect and another and another and another, and having the ability to mend them all together into one, system. I can only imagine the amount of work. Like you said, I don't know, was it like what the last 2-3 years you've been working on this entire system, right? I don't know if you want to speak to just like the research and like how much time you've spent on this, because obviously there's so much thought, so much research that has gone into this system. And I know we've been going back and forth, I've been trying to get you on like some of these spaces for like 6-9 months, and you're always telling me it's almost done, it's almost ready. Like, we're gonna talk.
Well, yeah, you know me. I don't want to go on and just talk, like just to talk. It's like you gotta build the stuff, and then it's like put up or shut up, I guess, And that's what my mentality has been. I don't want to come in here and like talk about something that isn't ready or complete, and that just feels very, I don't know.
Well, no, it's a great point. Like, there's no point in talking about components. Like, okay, we're working on this, and we think it's going to work this way. Like, there's no point in talking about that until, like you said, it's actually ready, and you can have this kind of conversation and explaining it in its entirety. Because, like I said, like, there's components from different perspectives and different people that have put life's work together on assessing these kind of things and building it out. But yeah, anyways, I guess maybe more of just a comment and an applause.
Yeah, we took our time. Like, we made sure that we wanted to make sure that we got it right at first to start, base things on real world theories and frameworks, apply them to the Telcoin platform, not treating crypto as this thing that is so much different than everything else in the world, when the reality is that there's an entire class of goods, that an entire schools of research on how you should govern these systems, and so that has been a big undertaking for me individually. I read more books about common pool resources and communal governance regimes than I ever thought I would, and that has been really exciting. And also has been a little bit of a in proposing this is certainly makes one feel vulnerable after they've worked for so long on it. So hearing positive feedback like this is really, it's really encouraging for me. If you guys would have responded to it like, I hate it, you guys like okay.
No, honestly, like, the way that we always talk about it too is like, that there's crypto and there's business. Like, this is the melding of those two things. Like, you guys are developing a business that is crypto centric, right? And connecting those two worlds together, TradFi, DeFi, building something that is, something totally new. Like you talked about at the onset, like, it's a new structure of financial access through the mobile network operators, right? Like, this is something that hasn't been done before. And to your point, right, what's the point of talking about it until you guys are absolutely ready to start talking about it, promote it, in its entirety. So I know there's probably been some, backlash on communication and stuff like that, right? But again, after the telcoin.org website was out, I was like, okay, now I understand
I
fully
understand.
as to why it took so long and the communication was a little bit lower than maybe what the community would have expected. But yeah, no, honestly, hats off to you, Parker, and the team. And I know you mentioned at the onset too, with all the people that were involved in this. This is amazing.
Yeah.
It's really, it blows my mind every time like we have this conversation and kind of look through these documents. Like I spent 4 hours last night just literally looking through this proposal and just like rereading things to make sure that I fully understand,
Yeah.
how you put it together and the amount of work that you put into it. So anyways, kudos, man.
Yeah, and before we move on, Parker, another relevant question came up. I thought we could address it really quickly because it is to the structure of the governance and M&O question, right? So I'm going to highlight this up on the screen. That's not the right one. Hold on. So Parker, did you get any pushback from the large telecom M&Os, and let's consider it the GSMA, on the way you set this governance up, or was it a collective effort? I mean, have you ran this by GSMA members and people that would basically govern this set of rules? Or have they been participants in any of these collective conversations to this point, or is this is Telcoin's network and this is how it's going to run?
Yeah, so we as I mentioned earlier, we've been in communications with the GSMA since 2018, established great relationships there, given tons of presentations on the Telcoin platform, including Telcoin Network, the opportunity set that's available there. We didn't release the information about the holistic information about the system to them or anyone in advance of releasing it to the community. We released everything at the same time. So that should answer your question. But Telcoin as a platform is now in that operation. It's like operational as a result of this proposal, and so there are mechanisms built into the governance system, which I'll go through in a second, to drive ecosystem development with the GSMA and understanding and participation, et cetera. And so I'll go through that.
Sure.
But yeah, but at a high level, I want to just backtrack here. So the process for developing the Telcoin governance system, first, we identified the nature of the good that's being governed as a common pool resource. And that enabled us to determine how are these things, what are the problems that are associated with governing these systems, and what are the lessons and tools we can use to create a governance system for them. We then identified the ownership regime that's implied based off of the different actors and their issuance harvesting levels and their ability to govern as a common property regime rather than like a corporate property regime or like a public one that's run by a government, whereas corporation would be company. And then we basically identified Ostrom's 8 design principles as the first. And if you go to the association constitution, those are the first 8 values that are ascribed within it. And so we took those design principles, which are effectively best practices that have been found, these characteristics that have been found across communal governance systems for governing this type of good, common pool resources. There are a set of best practices that have been found in the institutions similar to ours that have been tied to the long-term sustainability of those systems. And so we recognized those as values in the association constitution, and then we made them actionable by turning them into a series of research questions. So how do you make the boundaries between the resource system and the users and their ownership clear, right? That would be an example of operationalizing the first design principle. And so we did that for all of them and then created a response to each of those as a process or org within the governance system. And then we use the IAD and SDS framework to further define, apply, and categorize and just generally implement those principles across the board. So I'll let you guys read more about that as you go through the proposal, and we'll just get into the governance system.
Yep.
Yeah, so governance systems set of rules for managing human and technological interactions with the Telcoin platform and for allocating this extractable supply of Tel, as well as social interactions between miners within the association. It's a common pool resource, so it's difficult to exclude users, and then each unit that I extract from the system subtracts from the available supply to you, and then those units, Tel units, can be used, to be held or to consume network resources in the platform, exchange, transferred, or used in production processes by miners, harvesting, governance processes by miners. And the problems that are associated with governing this type of good it creates provisioning problems. So basically, you have to make sure that groups of people aren't just free riding off of the efforts of others, and instead are collectively contributing to improvements to the system. So the public, aspect of it's really difficult to exclude users means that if there aren't governance systems in place to ensure that everyone contributes, that some people will be able just to come in and interact and benefit from the system without actually having to contribute to its development. And then the subtractive nature of the Tel units means that we, as a governance system, need to temper our extraction of Tel by allocating it sustainably. So in the case of Tel, as an example, the sustainability formula for Tel is that if the total Tel that's distributed from the Tel treasury is equal to or less than the total Tel that is regenerated to the Tel treasury by a Telcoin network, then in that case, Tel issuance is sustainable. And so,
Sorry, Parker, not to
yeah,
interrupt, but like, can we just go through that quickly, like with numbers, just to make it like pretty clear? Like, so if there's a certain amount of Tel in the
yeah,
treasury and whatever, just to make it
yeah.
clear.
So the Tel basically the Tel token economic model is designed as a response to the two primary largest economic models in crypto. So the Bitcoin network has sustainability, it has scarcity, but it is an exhaustible resource. In terms of BTC, every 4 years, the amount that miners can harvest from the system, it halves until there's none left. And so once all 21 million have been harvested, then there will be no more Bitcoin, but it will have that scarcity of that total supply cap that people tie a monetary premium towards. So, and then the other model that we put under focus was the Ethereum model, where you have an unlimited supply cap, but you also have a destruction mechanism so that the quantity still remains scarce while ensuring sustained yield for future miners by having no supply cap. Well, with the Tel model, we have combined the best of the Bitcoin model, where there is a 100 billion Tel supply cap, and the best of the Ethereum model, where there's a destruction of the units in circulation. So we basically enabled through that regeneration mechanism, and instead of just burning it outright, it regenerates the Tel treasury, and so governance can sustain Tel for future generations when the issuance rate is equal to the Tel regeneration rate over time, while maintaining the supply cap, total supply cap of 100 billion. So solves Bitcoin or implements Bitcoin scarcity by keeping 100 billion supply cap, introduces the burn mechanism from Ethereum while ensuring that supply cap stays intact, and then so you have the continuous yield plus scarcity, and that's the sort of Tel economic model.
I like it. Yeah, here's a comment for you, Parker. Just a little love throwing.
Oh, love. That's always good.
You want an audio book?
Do I have like one of those voices that is conducive to audiobooks? when you
Maybe.
like
Hey,
lock
look,
yourself in a room for a
see.
couple of years and work on something, you kind of forget what you talk like. So
There you go.
I do interact socially. All right. So yeah. So the governance problems, I went through those. Basically, the Telcoin governance model is a set of rules that regulates how much people can harvest from the platform in terms of the timing, quantity, location, technology used to harvest it, who's required to contribute resources to plan, finance, and coordinate construction, maintenance, administration of the platform, subsystems, other goods and services, how the above are monitored and enforced, how conflicts are resolved, and how those rules will change over time.
I was just gonna say, like for people too, like that want a quick recap of this. I remember clipping this last night as a portion of it be like just a quick snapshot, very high level. This is a quick snapshot of what the governance system essentially has responsibility to and works towards. So it's nice to have that in there too, because again, there's a lot of content in here, but a lot of people may not have 3-4 hours to dive into this. I've been encouraging most people to try to dive into it because you want to understand it and how you're going to benefit from it as an individual miner. But from a high level, like that's a really good snapshot of the entire system as a whole.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's just a high level, and then there's the different things that are under the rule of governance, and then you have the population that's subject to and participates in governance. So there's basically the four minor groups that are differentiated functionally. If you take the USA electoral process as an example, the differentiation between power and the voting constituents is geographically distributed. In this case, it's functionally differentiated. So the miners, based off of their function, they participate in governance. And the reason for that is that you could, if you didn't include all four of these actors within the governance system, then one of them could very easily just say, "Oh, see you later, stakers, no more for you." And so stakers need to approve of themselves, let's say, having their property revoked, if that were to ever be the case.
Yeah, so in every single council, there's at least one group represented. To your point, and I know some of them are a little bit different. Like I know Telex has, I think it's 3 liquidity miners in it, and then one of each other ones. But I think the way that you guys kind of put it together was really smart, because you need to have obviously a more focus with those people that have that experience and that knowledge within those different councils as a part of those groups to push everything forward, right?
Right. We basically wanted to ensure that on global councils where you're impacting global systems like the token, treasury, the governance infrastructure, Telcoin network, those are done through councils that have a balanced representation from each of the minor groups. The whole system is effective. The choice process for the day-to-day rules is a representative democracy where each of these minor groups gets to elect council members to each of the minor councils. And so, yeah, as you mentioned, on the basis for representation is their functional relationship with the platform. So, liquidity miners, they're staked liquidity, stakers, they're staked TEL on TAN. Same thing with developers, and then the validators with their staked TEL for POS. They each have representation. And on the local councils like the Telex Council, our goal is to have informational efficiency while ensuring that everyone has a voice on every council. So to have, let's say, as you mentioned, 3 Telex reps on the Telex council makes a lot of sense, while it's still ensuring that validators, developers, and stakers still have a voice in the products that they're going to be relying on in their daily lives to produce their services and to earn revenue, right?
For sure. And just to be clear, when you say balanced, because I know there's 8 members, it's 2, 2, 2, 2.
Yeah. So on the platform, treasury and compliance councils, it's balanced. So that means where the platform council has 8 members, there's 2 from each minor group.
Okay.
On the treasury
Whether or not
council,
it was open to any of, or if it was specific to 2, 2, 2, 2, I just wanted to make sure because it doesn't really define that.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
In the doc, but I just wanted to clarify. But okay.
Sounds good. Yeah, so it's a representative democracy, a democratic system of self-governance where the minors possess ultimate shared authority over within the governance system, and it's constitutional democracy in the sense that uh, basically each of the interest groups has to affirm any changes to the overarching governance system for them to go into effect. Otherwise, they can have their rights revoked. And then, yeah, polycentricity is the eighth design principle from Ostrom, having multiple different decision-making units. Basically, is within ours, rather than like a monocentric regime, let's say a dictatorship where there's one group like Leninist Soviet Union, where there's one group, they make the rules for everything. In the Telcoin platform governance system, there are numerous different decision-making units with their own circumscribed domain of authority in which they have autonomy to make and enforce their own rules. And so this model was chosen. Just at a basic level, there's the 4 platform minor groups who elect council members to represent their interests on 5 different minor councils, including global, local, and special purpose councils, i.e., the compliance council. And then each of those minor councils has the ability to make their own rules and enforce them. And there's also a separate entity that we've created called the Tau that is meant to serve as a natural provider or producer or administrator of goods at the financing and direction of the minor councils. And so, yeah, polycentricity was chosen because it's highly adaptive. It's a good fit for a complex system like this. And there's a mitigation of risk through redundancy, where you can have multiple overlapping experiments going on at the same time. And let's say that there's a failure in the way that people are allocating or providing at the TAN level. Well, that won't affect Telex or Telcoin network, et cetera. So you can have these experiments, and by having this parallel governance system across the board, you can mitigate risk and experiment with new types of rules. So yeah, now I guess the meat and potatoes, everything else is sort of context. There's basically miners control the whole system wrapped within this Telcoin association structure. At the highest level of governance, the miners can form a miner assembly and can, if they all vote to on the same TGIP proposal and adopt it, they can change any aspect of the Telcoin platform governance system. Then
Sorry,
minor
Mark,
group, you go ahead.
do you mind just diving in, because there was a lot of mentions to the minor assembly. Can you just speak to that a little bit more? It's like, from my understanding, that's like a group of council members from each of those councils that get together.
No. So basically, there's the 4 minor groups, right? Or in stakers, developers, equity miners, and validators.
Yep.
And they can form a minor assembly by submitting and voting to approve an identical TGIP1 proposal. So the minor groups form the minor assembly to change aspects of governance. And so it's the ultimate decision-making unit in governance.
Okay, and then are members appointed to that assembly, or how?
No, the minor groups, all the stakers, all the developers, liquidity miners, and validators, each encompass their own group, and each of those groups together can form an assembly. So in practice, what that looks like if you're forming an assembly is, let's say the stakers submit a TGIP2 proposal that says, let's get rid of all the minor councils and give the treasury to Parker. That wouldn't pass. But so then each one of them would need to take that exact proposal, submit it to their snapshot, approve it with 80% approval and 20% quorum. And then they can change that aspect of the governance system, which will then be carried out by the Tau.
Okay.
More practical example would be like to say, all right, let's get rid of the Treasury Council or something.
Yeah, okay. It's essentially like when you're looking at it from a high level, it's all of four of them working together as a core unit, making decisions on the platform.
Right. And the reason for that construction is to ensure that you can't just vote stakers or liquidity miners or validators or developers off the island without their consent.
Is there a reason why you guys didn't move forward with like an assembly prior to this and you wanted to make it more
Well,
of a proposal before?
how would you practically do that?
Why? Yeah, well, yeah, that's a good point.
So basically, yeah, there's the problem with that is that you have just a cart before the horse problem. The community first, we'll go through the whole process of implementing this thing, but the community first needs to adopt the system, ratify the Constitution, participate as individual miners, nominate themselves into minor council positions, and then elect their minor councils for the thing to be operational. And so, approving this proposal, it ratifies the Constitution, so people are operating within a legal order. It finances the code audit for the code that people are actually going to be interacting with in order to participate in the minor positions in the first place. And so, yeah, we're going from pre Telcoin platform and association to operational Telcoin platform and association through TGIP1, this special purpose proposal. And then after that, operating within association rules that have been already accepted by the existing community, then anyone could submit a TGIP1 and try and alter the governance system. But you have to choose between governance arrangements before you can operate within them, if that makes sense to you.
Yep.
So yeah, so we have the minor groups, which are the four different staker developers, liquidity miners, and validators, and then you have the minor councils who each of them elect. There's global councils that sort of analyze the platform from the global level, all three systems combined into one structure, the Tel treasury, the governance infrastructure, the Tel token. And then you have the local councils. So TAN governs TAN rules. Telex council governs Telex, let's say harvesting rules, communication rules, etc. And then you have the compliance council, which basically has the authority to veto any minor council proposal based off of rules, laws, association values, even, and the obligation to authorize new validators, developers, and council members into their positions using KYC AML. They are required to monitor the system for legal and compliance purposes and to develop and administer a conflict resolution system, which is one of the principles from Ostrom as well. So those are the minor councils. So the minor groups elect the minor councils, and then the minor councils make day-to-day decisions. And so now we have the Telcoin Association, which I'll just kind of scroll up and go through that section. Unless you guys want to kick me out early or something.
No, hey, you tell us how you're doing on time. I told the wife I'm
good.
busy until 7, so.
Yeah. No, my door is locked, so nobody's coming in here. So
I don't
my
know
next
if
meeting
it's
is in
running
an
around
hour.
upstairs or not, but
we'll be cognizant of your time. Make sure we get you out of here.
Well, yeah. So my next meeting is in an hour. All right. So Telcoin Association. Do you remember when I went to Lugano, by the way, Andrew? And I was like, oh, I'm out in Switzerland doing this.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of why I was there. It's so basically the Telcoin Association. There's this association model called a Varin, and
Yeah, I
heard you guys try to pronounce the name of it.
Sure, it's not
Yeah,
Varane.
I can hear that. Honestly, I think I'm 100 right on the pronunciation, but
I'm gonna
anyways, so this type of entity structure has been used for decentralized orgs for years and years across the world, and so and it also accounts for something like 30% of the forestry associations in Switzerland. And so we have both a decentralized legal structure that is suitable for this use case, and in terms of this global aspect, decentralized governance, but also it's suitable for managing and governing interactions with similar systems, i.e. a forest is it's really hard to exclude users from accessing a forest, and one tree that I extract subtracts from the available supply to others, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we took this legal structure that actually people had pondered for a while as being suitable for DAOs, and practically applied it into the Telcoin use case. And so it's domiciled in Lugano, Switzerland, which is basically the crypto capital of the first world. You pay all your taxes in Bitcoin, USDT. They have their own local token that's a rewards token for people to use at different stores and shops with benefits. I mean, this is the crypto capital of the first world, is how I would put it. And yeah, so the goal was basically to ensure that we as a community making decisions towards this thing on the internet have legal recognition to make our own rules, and the ability to do business with others, enter into contractual relationships, a means for council members to file taxes, limited liability protection, legal protection, so that the miners can represent their interests in proceedings, information sharing mechanisms, et cetera. And so that has been, that's definitely a really exciting area for us because, as I said, we wanted to take the things that we want to make sure that the Telcoin platform and is in its community has all the benefits that you would get from participating in the real regular world, traditional world of goods and services and governance that you would, on this platform. So we want to make sure everybody has the same rights that they would there. And yeah, the values are pretty comprehensive. The mission and vision you guys can go through a little bit later if you'd like, or I can run through it. It's up to you. And so basically, yeah, we wanted to make sure that people governing things on the internet benefit from the same protections that they would traditionally. And so that's the reason for the association, along with a number of other bullets that I won't go through on here. But yeah, so Switzerland is a center of the world for this type of thing. The variant entity structure has been used for tons of similar types of clubs that just don't happen to be blockchain based.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of went through all this. Now I'll just go into the governance system.
So everybody's saying they want to move to Switzerland, right? So
it is a beautiful place, man.
I want to move to Switzerland. Joe Emmerich said the same thing. Yeah,
I live in St. Louis, so yeah, I'd love to move to Switzerland.
Understood.
Well, someone's got to be there, right?
Yeah. There kind of does need to be someone there, and there is actually.
If you're hiring, man, I'm down.
I mean, I'm not the leader of the Telcoin Association. The community is. That's the whole point, right?
That's a good point. So the first vote is we're shipping crypto SIBO to Switzerland for exploration.
How would the wife feel about that?
She'll be fine. I promise.
She'd be stoked. She'd be like, "Let's go." You're going. I'm going.
Yeah, that's right.
Honestly, and by the way, the flag I've been wanting to say for a while. That's where we should hang the flag.
In Switzerland. I was just gonna say the first meetup I think needs to be in Switzerland. Like if we're doing like a Telcoin conference or like the first like global meetup, it's got to be in Switzerland.
Does Liberty still have the flag, or has he shipped it off again? Yeah.
He does, I think.
Okay.
He's been asking me what my address is, so I think it's coming to Canada.
Yeah, he was driving in front of the Notre Dame University, taking pictures with it. I don't know if you saw that, Parker, but he was doing due diligence with the flag. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about the Notre Dame thing. No, I'm kidding. Actually,
I don't either. Yeah, I probably feel the same as you, but yeah. Well, I wanted to give them some love, and they need it.
Yeah, that's where Paul went.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it's just I hate to break it to everybody. It's just Notre Dame fans are pretty tough to hang out with when there's a football game on. I don't know.
I'm
The
a
only
Michigan.
one who thinks that. I know.
Michigan. We've been battling Notre Dame my entire life. So
Got it. So yeah, basically the Telcoin Association is meant to enable the users, the user groups, miners to make their own decisions with legal representation basis. And the Tau is meant to serve as this natural producer, administrator of a variety of collective goods at the financing and direction of the association. It's meant to basically be a special purpose producer and administrator of collective goods. And so you separate this planning and financing decision making away from the actual implementation of those things so that you don't end up in technocratic structures like Bitcoin governance, where there's just a bunch of developers deciding that this is how it should work. Well, it's like, no, there's a whole comprehensive set of involved actors who have, who should have a voice in this. And so we need to separate the decision making about how things ought to be from the actual implementation of that, both legally and practically. So the minor councils are responsible for making choices and coordinating and financing, and then the Tau and any other third party service provider that the minor councils decide to work with actually implements those things. And there's a specific, so the authority of the Tau has the ability to make proposals to any of the minor council snapshots, can't vote on them. And then until there's a quorum of 10 validators, the Tau will vote on behalf of validators for council members and constitutional processes, et cetera. And that's to ensure that the system not only is protecting the interests of existing stakeholders, but the interests of future stakeholders who haven't had the opportunity to participate and form a quorum. And their duties include submitting election proposals, which, and by the way, the association, the minor councils can just decide to get rid of the Tau whenever they want, based off of what we're talking about. So if the Telex council is like, we want to have Andrew be the person that maintains smart contracts, and we want to pay him to do that, fair game. If the platform and treasury council say we're not going to finance the Tau to maintain the system anymore, and that they will de facto won't exist, right, for that purpose. So it's meant to basically enable a variety of things. So we want the system to be scalable, and basically with this, it enables an organization to take on tasks that should administrative, production, coordination, contracting, tasks like that at the direction of the councils, without the councils requiring to get in and actually implement those things. So you can make choices based off of your preferences and not based off of what, let's say, a technocrat decides is the way things should be. No, the community decides the way things should be and then figures it out and coordinates with production administrative units to implement them. So by empowering the Tau so basically with elections, let's say that stakers fail to have a 20% quorum and therefore don't elect anyone, the Tau will substitute on their behalf until they reach a quorum to elect someone. And that's the same for if a council member fails to KYC AML within the first 30 days. If a council member fails to vote on a series of proposals at the direction of the compliance council, the Tau can then say, all right, we need to substitute and elect a new person because this person that is abstaining from voting when that's their primary duty isn't upholding it. And so it reduces the decision-making costs that are imposed. And then it reduces the external costs that could be imposed upon, let's say, validators by the other groups in decision-making. And if the community wants to go and have a proposal that's submitted to, let's say, the Telex Council snapshot, but they can't get their representative to submit the proposal, and then they can effectively go to the TAO and say, TAO, like, will you guys submit this? Here's why. And if TAO thinks it's a good proposal, then they can submit it on their behalf. So it's meant to decrease decision-making costs. It's meant to reduce external costs from other groups on, future stakeholders. And it's there to, enable minority representation along with the implementation of the decisions made by minor councils. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, do you want to elaborate on like why they wouldn't be able to do it themselves? Like, I know that's the
Why would it's like so yeah, exactly. So
2%.
we want to separate production and planning and financing, because then it opens up the community to the ability to make decisions without requiring some, without also having to implement them, and it separates between production and decision making, so that you can reduce the costs of implementing those things, and basically have this natural producer that handles things that are outside of the scope of just pure decision making within the association. So the association is going to make decisions to contract with XYZ service provider, like Sherlock for the code audit.
Yep.
It's going to, in any number of third party groups. The TAO is just meant to be a natural provider for the things within the association at the beginning and long term, if the association determines, for the perspective of maintaining and constructing new systems, submitting election proposals, substituting on behalf of minor groups that fail to reach a quorum, substituting on behalf of council members who fail to vote in a timely manner at the direction of the compliance council, et cetera. So it's a administration unit that's meant to reduce costs of governance and ensure everyone has a voice.
Okay, and the initial TAO was set up with 5 members, if I'm not mistaken. They have 18 months initially.
Yeah, so the initial TAO, I'm the executive director, and then Tim Mahoda, the chief compliance officer, is legal and compliance director. Rajesh Sabari, who's the guy who goes, he's the man. He goes around to all the different
GSMA
events.
All familiar with him.
Everybody knows Rajesh video clip.
Sharif. All these guys are the man, so I don't want to just say he's the man. But so yeah, Amir is the smart contract developer who created all of the Telcoin platform and governance systems, and Grant is the developer of Telcoin Network blockchain, primary developer of Telcoin Network blockchain. So that membership makes a lot of sense to us, and will be able to be changed after the first 18 months by the community. And yeah, so we went through the rationale here. Hope I'm not losing everybody. Understand if I am. It's not like
no, our viewership is staying solid, man.
Yeah,
it's
great.
Yeah,
thanks for hanging out, everybody.
Yeah, no, we're doing good. Like I said at the onset, like there's a lot in here, but like it's worth the time to invest to go through the details to really understand it, so you can fully understand how you can utilize and benefit from the platform, right? So,
absolutely. And thanks for giving me a forum to talk about this.
Mm-hmm. Anytime you want to come on, Parker, it's an open invitation.
Awesome. Within I mentioned the IID framework earlier. It provides for 3 or 4 different levels of rules. So 3 levels of authority. At the highest level, you have this meta-constitutional rules, which we've articulated as values. These inform the subsidiary decision-making levels on what exactly is acceptable and should be seen as legitimate. They're really norms or ethical values. And then the constitutional rules, TGIP1 is a process at the constitutional level of authority in Telcoin governance. So the constitutional rules is where the community of minor groups in the minor assembly can set the terms and conditions of governance, alter them, etc. The council rules, which would be generally referred to as the collective choice rules, those are the minor groups electing or doing a special election called a liquid delegation to it's the rules that structure how the councils are elected, and then how the councils can make decisions concerning the Telcoin platform and other day-to-day activities, i.e. the operational rules like teleharvesting rules or the communication and information rules. That's where those are what or conflict resolution, authorizations, etc. Those are the day-to-day rules that are set by minor councils. So if you go through the constitutional choice rules section, TGIP is this ultimate decision-making process that requires coordination from the 4 minor groups in an assembly to change any aspect of governance. Additionally, you have what's called a Telcoin Representative Improvement Proposal, or TRIP, which enables minor groups to alter the required attributes of their council members and the special duties that their council members are required to do on each of the councils. So they can say that, let's say the stakers could say, we want our Telex council member to have to provide us with XYZ information at this date and time, or they could alter the nomination application for their representatives, etc. So this table doesn't look beautiful, but it basically is saying that the voting rules are for a TGIP. The voting rules are, 80% approval, 20% quorum, and duration of 7 days from all 4 of the minor groups. Or if it's just a TRIP proposal, a minor group can independently make their decisions using an 80% approval and 20% quorum.
And just for people that don't know what quorum means.
Yeah, so 20%, let's say stakers want to change their Telex council's special duties. So they would need 20% of the total tel that is staked by stakers needs to vote, and it needs to approve that change with an 80% approval rate. And if you want to change the governance system, then all 4 groups voting on an identical proposal, i.e. TGIP2, with the same exact verbiage, et cetera, all 4 of them need to approve it with an 80% approval rate and 20% from each minor group participating in the vote.
That's amazing. Like you said, it really gives a lot of the power to each individual group to really have their voice said and heard in this entire governance system.
Yeah, in those rules, 80% approval, 20% quorum, were modeled off of municipal zoning ordinances, as out there as that is, because it's very similar in that way.
Yeah.
Changing the rules for the physical domain that you have ownership over that's important to your day-to-day activities should require a high level of consensus. And then the council rules there's 2 different sets of rules there. One of them is voting power and the representation on each of the minor councils by each of the actors. And the other rules are, how many council members do each of the minor groups elect based off of what power and decision-making rules. And so there's 2 different types of ceremonies for those rules. The one is the election ceremonies, which are just annual ceremonies in which all of the council members are elected by the 4 minor groups across the board. That first inaugural election should be pretty exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what types of positions people will end up applying for and everything.
So on that note, Parker, I was going to ask a question. Are you able to apply to multiple positions, or is it like a one and done type situation? Like
it's one. You can participate. You can participate and submit a nomination You can submit a nomination application for one position every election. You can't submit it to multiple.
Okay, so at the end of the day, no one person can be on multiple councils at the same time.
Right.
Okay.
Listen to power hungry Andrew there, huh?
I'm just asking.
I feel like he's trying to take over, man.
Clarity.
He's like, yeah, I mean, I'd like to, kind of have all the,
So I want to spot on every one of them.
yeah.
Hey,
Andrew is,
why
you
not?
should call it the Andrew Council.
Yeah.
Well, once I get the president of the council, I can create that one, right?
Right. Because we deal in presidents in this
Whatever, you know what I'm trying to say.
this game shit. So yeah, then liquid delegation ceremonies are basically a mechanism to keep your council members accountable by ensuring that you can at any time remove and replace a council member who is not representing your preferences, breaching the council rules in terms of they're abstaining from their votes, or they're not showing up to the communication meetings or to the recurring council meetings. It's a way for outside of the election window people to remove and replace existing council members with new reps. And then, yeah, we have the minor council decision-making rules, which basically platform council can use the TIP process, which requires 6 out of 8 approval to alter any of the social policies of the platform that are platform wide. So things like deciding how frequently the minor councils need to meet with their constituencies, what information should be shared where on the Telcoin Association website, the compliance, legal, and generally organizational rules outside of the association constitution in elections.
Yeah, just a quick comment, Parker. I don't know if collectively the community understands how much authority and power that we can have on decision making in this if we participate, right, in the voting and getting elected on the councils and stuff like that. I mean, I know there's different councils, right, and some are structured for the MNOs and whatnot, but on a community level, it's very, very empowering if people understand what you're giving to the community and the ability to do. So
it's a really good point, and I appreciate you saying that. That really comes back to the whole idea of polycentricity, having numerous just governance organizations with their own circumscribed domain of authority and specified decision-making processes. Having numerous of the ones across the platform enables for what would be called forum shopping. You can go and participate if they're not listening to you over at the TAN Council. Well, go to the platform treasury councils. If that position of liquidity miner doesn't suit your needs, then go participate as a staker. And yeah, that is definitely something that
it's a very powerful mechanism that you're offering the community, and that's one of the reasons the last couple of spaces have been trying to focus on this, and then getting you on here to go through it and try to clearly define what actually is happening is good for the community, and also hopefully will help drive the adoption of all of this. So
that's great.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. And of course, just let me know if I need to fill in any blanks. Then, so the TIP process is social platform-wide rules, 6 out of 8 from the platform council, 100% quorum, which except for the compliance council, every council has to have 100% quorum. That way it keeps everyone active, and it makes it very easy to see who's not participating, as well as it ensures a voice from everyone. So the platform council and treasury council use the TEL-IP process to make platform-wide decisions that have impacts on the system or change the election proposal author. I just remove the TAO, insert some other system to change the governance infrastructure, the TEL treasury, the TEL token contract. And after the main network is live for Telcoin network, and there are 10 validators, the TEL-IP process will be used to make Telcoin network operational rule changes and improvements and TEL allocation, et cetera. So the TAN Council, 6 members, 2 stakers, and 2 developer reps, 1 from liquidity miners and 1 from validators. This, as we touched on a little earlier, this construction is meant to ensure that because there's a 5 out of 6 approval rate, by having 2 stakers and 2 developers on the TAN council, that ensures that at least one of their council members has to approve in order for the proposal to pass. And that is, so it's, yeah, on the TAN council, 2 stakers, 2 developers, 1 liquidity miner, 1 validator. And then liquidity miners have 3 reps. Everyone else has 1 on the Telex IP process, which is effectively the same as the TAN IP process, but just on its own snapshot and over a different set of rules. And then the Compliance Council uses the Compliance Council improvement process. It has 4 members, 1 from each group, uses the Compliance Council improvement process to potentially veto any council proposals that breach laws or association values based on their interpretation or the community's interest in effectively reaching out and saying, this is problematic, here's why. The Compliance Council can veto a proposal in its tracks.
That's
And
basically laws
also,
and regulations that are ongoing or being developed with any kind of government level, right?
so they also do create compliance policies and conflict resolution and actor authorizations policies, and then are responsible for either coordinating or, in the case of authorizing, let's say, new GSMA application developers or validators, they're required to review that application and approve or reject them based off of their attributes and what they've set forward. So those are the real, like, the governance rules, right, that people would typically associate with governance. And then they're the operational rules. So those are just the day-to-day rules for interacting with the system and each other. So that includes the TEL treasury rules or the TEL harvesting rules, which are really articulated above in the actors, activities, benefits section, and then described here again, with the exception of the council members and TAO. There is basically a distribution to council members when council members are elected, they're automatically distributed a council NFT that confers them proposal and voting authority over their snapshot. So if you're a platform council member, you've been elected by one of the minor groups, after the election is concluded, the NFT automatically distributes to you. It is only transferable by minor groups and the Compliance Council / TAO if necessary. And it also distributes through a Sablier stream in real time an allocation of TEL that's split evenly across all the council members on a per block basis that they can claim at any time. So it's a council member issuance. And then the TAO has an initial airdrop, an ongoing stream to finance construction, maintenance of Telcoin network, et cetera. And this can be changed at any time by the platform and treasury councils using the TEL IP process. This goes into, the one area on here that's important is after getting elected into a council member position, in terms of the eligibility rules, council members need to, the first part is the Compliance Council needs to create this KYC AML mechanism that they're going to use. And then the council members need to fill that out and complete it in order to maintain their NFT. You guys know how it is. We have to be compliant.
Mm-hmm.
KYC AML is that process, and the Compliance Council is purpose-built for that solution. And then, as of right now, the TAO is responsible for maintaining existing components, and that can be changed at any time by the councils that have domain over that. And then each of these minor councils is responsible for providing for planning and financing ecosystem or system improvements, allocating TEL. And communication information rules. So it's set up such that there needs to be recurring meetings every 2 weeks with the community to provide updates, interview and debate proposal authors, answer questions, and those take place in the Telcoin Discord, Telcoin Association Discord. There's of course the Discord, the Telcoin.org documentation in the forum. Those are controlled by, it depends on which section, let's say, of the forum or the Discord you're talking about, but at the highest level, controlled by platform-wide governance. So yeah, then compliance council responsible for conflict resolution. The ownership model for the Telcoin governance system is a common property regime. So instead of a corporation like we were talking about before, where you can basically exercise your ownership rights through the the complete set of ownership rights over a thing through a company with common stock. In this case, that does not exist. You can't just buy, tell, and take over anything. You have to use it. And the ownership that people can take over the system ranges from the ability to access, let's say, network resources like exchange liquidity pools, telco network block space, the ability to harvest tel units, to manage the system improvements and to regulate use patterns of tel, and to determine who can participate in those rights. But there is no way to, let's say, sell the ability to manage the resource or sell the ability to determine who can harvest the resource or any of those aforementioned rights, because as I mentioned earlier, you have this non-transferable NFT that moves via governance minor group election processes. So yeah, I won't get too deep into the the property right system here. I think it's important that people do understand that we're not talking like the Tokenomics Association, not a company at all. It's just a different type of ownership model. It's a common property regime, much closer to a fishing association than a company, and it's certainly much dissimilar to like a state government that owns a state park. And I think this section, if you're really interested in understanding more about the differences between the Telcoin ownership model as a common property regime versus company, this section does a really good job of explaining that. And then systems that don't have management models or ownership models whatsoever, like the open seas, maritime law, and atmosphere, they have non-property regimes. And of course, Telcoin governance is an ownership model. So next step here is the implementation plan. So I'm going to submit to the Council of Rivendell Snapshot channel at exactly the winter solstice, this new proposal.
So I got to ask, why the winter solstice?
It's commonly, look up what the winter solstice means.
I know Foxy put it out on Twitter and on X.
Yeah.
About it's like regeneration, rebirth.
Yeah, no, I would go and check it out, and then you'll know. Those are super important dates, but it's more ceremonious. And if you're doing a ceremony, you might as well add some pomp and circumstance, right?
It's poetic.
Yeah.
Right. So everyone can vote who doesn't have their tel sitting on an exchange that doesn't let them to vote on this proposal. Both Ethereum tel and Polygon tel can vote. And remember, these are the voter rules for this special purpose TGIP1 proposal. Afterwards, the rules are above. They're the one-time rules for how we're going to accept this proposal and then constitute the association and adopt the platform. So I think the one that's important here, besides the fact that everybody can vote and that you need to delegate your voting power if you have a Telcoin mobile app externally. If you are a Telex liquidity miner, which I feel like maybe 50% of people watching this are, then your liquidity counts not just the 80% tel in a, let's say, 80-20 tel USDC pool. It counts the tel value of the 80% tel plus the 20% USDC. So the total voting power is all the Telex value of tel plus the tel value of tel. And so liquidity miners have, power, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't discount the fact that liquidity miners are producing the system the most actively for the longest time into their power, right? That was important to me. So shout out to Amir for figuring that out.
Yeah, I can imagine the back end work that went into that.
Right. And so, yeah, go into the bottom, check out how to vote. It's a simple majority. There is no quorum threshold in this vote. It's a 7-day duration. The rationale for the simple majority and the quorum threshold is pretty simple. Token holder voting is not really something that is in my view, a good idea for common governance systems, just like the fish example earlier, where it's like, hey guys, I bought all this fish. Now I own the whole fishing association of the lake we govern. How you doing? They're like, get out of here, man. We don't so the ability to buy plutocratically ownership over the system is just it's just not suitable to common ownership. So the simple majority is built in to effectively mitigate that. People trying to buy up the system by just buying 20%, if that's a feasible thing, wouldn't make much sense under this context. It will be important, though, that there's a high level of consensus around this beyond simple majority. I mean, I really would love to see, 100%. How's that sound? But yeah, so then go ahead. We submitted a how to vote, a bunch of sections there earlier last week. I highly recommend reviewing that. It's really not complicated at all.
Not at all. Honestly, like doing it on the app, delegating to a MetaMask wallet, like it's literally copy paste, put it in, delegate, done.
Yes, exactly. And if you guys want the reason for like why that is the case,
Sure.
That's been a very popular question, and I believe Andrew's DMs as well as mine. So
sure. So basically, on snapshot proposals, smart contracts cannot vote directly, and multi-signature wallets like Telcoin are smart contract wallets. So we needed to effectively make a system so that this smart contract wallet can still vote based off its power within the snapshot model. At scale, what you can do is you can implement so basically your smart contract wallet, your multi-sig, is delegating to an external wallet because it can't vote on its own, but you can technically self-delegate, which is something that we want to figure out within the mobile app. But without an approved proposal to do that, allocating substantial resources to a process that it didn't make as much sense this time. It's also technically a problem that is challenging that we need to figure out how to solve at scale. So basically, it enables us to administer this vote and enable people to participate without taking up too much time and before getting into everything else is there ready to go. So
yeah, that's a big piece of information. Thank you for sharing that. I think that'll clear it up for quite a few people that was wondering why we couldn't just use the Telcoin app, right? If we already have our tokens there, why can't we not have to delegate it to a MetaMask or Trust Wallet? So yeah, thanks for that information.
And just a quick question too, I'm seeing from the community. Is it possible, like say me, my wife, and I make an app for my son, can I delegate all of those three to the same MetaMask wallet?
yeah, I'm not stopping you.
I think I knew the answer. It was more just to make sure we get it from you to hear it, to make sure.
Yeah, you can delegate and there's also a way to, if you're using like a Gnosis safe or something, to delegate, but it's a little more complex. We've kind of put that all under the hood in the Telcoin app. But yeah, you can delegate multiple addresses to one address and have that address vote. You could theoretically create a yes voting MetaMask wallet that people delegate to if they don't want to create their own,
Mhm.
and then that just votes. You obviously have to trust the person that they're going to vote how you want to,
Yeah.
but yeah, you certainly could delegate to your family can certainly delegate to you to vote on the proposal. Yeah. So what's the outcome here? The outcome is that we cryptographically ratify the Telcoin Association Constitution. That just gets me really excited when
I
I
was just
come
gonna
on
say, I
stage
can see
with
it in
that,
your
man. I
face.
just love it. And then the community is formally accepting the new system that's described here and on the Telcoin Association website and Constitution. Our role deconcentrates from this position of, well, the first thing I just want to say is that any decentralized system, the inherent definition of decentralization requires centralization at first, right? The Bitcoin network was centralized when it started. Ethereum network centralized when it started. The very definition of decentralized means that it was centralized to start. And so we're decentralizing our role from this position of primary decision maker, implementer of improvements, allocator of TEL, to just one out of the four minor group positions in the role of application developer. And we will participate and compete versus other application developers to vote for reps and to harvest TEL issuance, and won't participate in three out of the four positions. So that is, a major step towards decentralization, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And the code audit, that of course needs to happen before we can use the code, right? And the Telcoin Network Block Explorer are both in this proposal to ensure that those things can move forward in a timely manner. And then, yeah, platform adoption by the miners. Once that's done, self-organization by the community through the election of the councils, and then a more longer form implementation plan. Uh, if the proposal's rejected, we'll review, contest, take feedback into consideration and apply it to a new proposal. And then if we just can't achieve consensus for the new system, then there really isn't another choice except for to fork the protocol, because we want to adopt a system that is communally desired, while still ensuring that it becomes operational and practical in a timely manner. And so we will fork to a new system if necessary. I don't foresee that being a thing, but it's important to put that in there. So first, it's Friday, December 15th, I believe, but that caused a lot of confusion. But yeah, submitted the forum proposal last week. On this Thursday, we're going to submit the TGIP proposal. So everyone make sure that you are ready to vote by that time, because if your voting power is not in a wallet that can vote at that exact block height at 9:27 p.m. on December 21st, then you don't have any voting power on the proposal. You won't be able to vote. So that's why we have this initial delegation period, because otherwise no one on the app would be able to vote.
So essentially, the two components there is get your TEL off to any centralized exchange into a compatible wallet, and then delegate anything on the TEL app to a mobile wallet like a MetaMask, essentially.
Yeah, something that's snapshot compatible across the board,
Exactly.
and that's illustrated a little bit more in those
The videos.
tutorials. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, after the code is audited, then, well, the council nominations after the proposal is done, people can start nominating themselves to the forum across the board to participate in any number of the council member positions. So that's gonna be really fun, because I just can't wait to see what ones everybody decides to do and everything. And then, yeah, code audit is at the same time. That usually takes 21 days, and it could take a little shorter, a little bit longer. But once that's done, then we'll just initiate the TEL distribution systems. So basically, for the first quarter, the first quarter of TEL from the treasury will distribute to be harvested by the miners, and then the rest, and then as a Sablier stream, the rest will distribute from the TEL treasury to the other to those systems for the miner councils to allocate once they are elected. So the harvesting by miners, the adoption of the platform is a necessary prerequisite for those same actors to vote for their council members, which I think answers the question from earlier. But yeah, so at that point, we're economically decentralized. The 4 miner groups are harvesting TEL after the code is audited. First election commences. And then the association has been self-organized and governance is decentralized.
Just to make a note too, I know it says it at the bottom part of the disclaimer, but like the dates that are put in there are obviously subject to change based off of results of what happened.
Right. I mean, we could go to the auditor. They do the code audit. And they're like, yeah, here's we gotta change everything or something like that, just within the realm of possibility. And so everything that is here is subject to change based off the outcomes of the actions of individuals or collective actions of the association, or any number of things that can happen, from system conditions to external service providers taking longer than hoped. It's like, to me, it's kind of, I don't love putting in timelines to things, especially when you're dealing with like complex software that lots of people on the internet use. It's generally immutable. But in this
It's out of your
case,
control, right? Too, right?
but in
Like,
this case, we want to forecast because of this implementation plan. So yeah, I mean, and what changes is that you're not holding Telcoin Holdings is not going to be accountable for what if the community just elects people, and like that's the whole community, right? That's the whole point of decentralizing both power and duties. Then the last sections here are just the risk management stuff that is just meant to be it's not exhaustive, right? We used an existing framework to describe the different risks, describe them, characterize the impact of what would happen and the likelihood, as well as mitigation strategies and who is accountable to ensuring those risks are mitigated and taken care of if they actually play out.
yeah, I was gonna say there's 2 of them that I think that the community might want to dive into a little bit more. One was like the key management and loss, and then
Yeah.
maybe the interoperability challenges. Maybe if you can just
Cool.
you can go to those 2 and just speak to a little bit more on those.
Sounds good. So key management wise, what we're basically saying here is that private keys enable you to fully access your tokens. And if you give away, one of the risks that's associated with using blockchain systems is this: if you give away your private key, you give away your ownership. And the benefit to having a private key model is that you get to have individual private property rights or ownership over your own goods and services without reliance on a third party. And so that's like the cornerstone of what is one of the most exciting things about crypto, is that it enables ownership on the internet independent of a central party like a Coinbase or whoever. And so what we're just saying is that it's a high impact to lose your keys, and then the likelihood of that happening is I mean, you have to think about hundreds of thousands of users, right? Collectively trying to secure their keys, people on Telex getting, scammed or something through one of those airdrop schemes on Twitter. That's kind of the things that we're talking about here when we talk about key management.
Mm-hmm.
The market solution to this is creating the position of application developer to enable secure access and ownership over your goods without having to store a private key offline. And so the Telcoin mobile app that we've produced is the first one of those on the Telcoin platform, and it's meant to mitigate that. But your keys, your coins, guys, and if you're not using a secure multi-sig solution like the Telcoin mobile app to interact with your crypto, then your private keys are your responsibility. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's a big focus too, and the reason why I wanted to bring that up is again, you lose your phone, or you stored them on a notes in your phone, and next thing you know, your phone gets stolen, and you know you lose everything that you have on there, right? With the Telcoin application, obviously you have the ability to talk to customer support, get those funds back, reestablish your connection to your Telcoin wallet. Again, it's ingenious the way that you guys have put it together. And it makes it like very simple too, right? Like from a customer perspective, like you don't need to have the knowledge or education on blockchain to really understand it, right? Like, okay, I lost my phone. Okay, I'm going to open a support ticket, and we're going to work through,
Right.
the KYC AML to make sure that I am who I'm saying I am, and then okay, I get access to my funds back.
Yeah, I think we can all probably agree that the concept of taking an air gap computer, printing off a private key, cutting it up into a bunch of pieces, putting it in bank vaults across your local territory isn't fun, and
Yeah,
it's not scalable at all.
I don't
Right?
think.
And
No.
that is the Telcoin mobile app is meant to solve that problem. And it's an ongoing challenge. It's that you have the benefit of ownership of things on the internet without people, which is just crazy to think about. Uh, but then that comes with responsibility. And then the interoperability challenges. If anyone who's familiar with cross-chain bridging mechanisms has probably noticed that those are the biggest honeypots for hackers to attack blockchains. They have resulted in billions of dollars worth of losses. And so we, in terms of the interoperability aspects of bridging, it's just an area that requires a very smart approach using time-tested methods that are audited and, as I said, secure. So that's kind of the interoperability stuff. And then one thing I didn't mention earlier is that the coding language for for Telcoin Network is Rust, which is a really efficient coding language that that's implemented and more secure, I think, than others. The other risks like tel exhaustion, the community needs to temper its use of the resource, lack of adoption. There's tons of mitigation strategies in place for that. Things like making the rules more inclusive. Let's say there aren't enough validators who want to adopt the system because XYZ reason. Well, then you say, all right, well, let's open up who can participate and why. So you have this continuous experimentation process that this system is meant to enable.
Well, and that's like anything that's new that is being adopted. It's going to go through ebbs and flows until it gets a little bit more consistent and finds its path, right? Which you guys have built it in a perfect way to kind of go through those ebbs and flows within a formal governance system that is, provided and voted upon by the government or the community.
Right. I mean, the perfect system part, I wish it was possible, and I really appreciate that. But, the idea of like some person in a room somewhere creating like a perfect governance system for a global blockchain network secured by MNOs is such a presumptuous idea. I'm really trying to be as humble as possible because
Well,
it's non-trivial, but I think we're, it's an ongoing process of getting it right. Right.
I'd like to see Parker after this becomes whole and starts to, form itself. What other platforms sniff this out and start adopting similar strategies to their own governance? So this is the most in-depth I've ever seen. Not that I'm a DAO expert by any means, but some of the ones that I have saw or seen and participated in are very simplistic. What you described earlier in the chat here. But this is the holistic approach is just it's somewhat mind blowing when it comes to what we've seen so far.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, you got it.
So the other thing things I'll run through real quick, governance system capture. Well, that's going to be real. If you think about it, that's like a crazy, the way the system's built out, that's a very difficult thing to do because you need to become all four miners. And then with 80% approval and 20% of voting power, you need to change the rules to take it over and send yourself all the tokens. It's, the impact would be, of course, high, but we certainly have designed this thing from the ground up so that Bob trying to take over the Telcoin platform is closer to like a joke than practical reality.
Yeah.
And then the rules, the enforceability of the rules, we've tried to give that legal credibility and legitimacy. So, let's say, but as an example, you guys can read through the Telcoin network protocol rules violated, council rules breached later, I guess. I mean, that's basically the compliance council and tower responsible for monitoring, and then the TAO enforces, someone's failure to vote or whatever. But the operational rules just generally being violated. Let's say that the Telex Council says that TEL USDC should harvest 1 million TEL for the next month, and then the staking contract that's used to self-enforce those rules doesn't go off as executed. Well, then the councils are required to ensure that the people who provided stake liquidity during that time period, despite the code not working as intended, are able to earn what the rules stated they were. The additional component that's interesting to this is that by having legal credibility through the association and a council that is focused with one of its exclusive functions to represent the association in legal proceedings, let's say that a TEL staking contract or something is hacked and XYZ TEL is stolen. In the traditional model, let's say you don't have an organization, there is no legal entity. No one is going to take your claim seriously because you don't have an actual organization. You're just one person that's participating in this regimeless legal entity that has no legal standing. And so your rules don't matter. You can make your own rules, but that doesn't mean that anyone has to recognize them. And so the association is set up so that they're legally recognizable and legally enforceable, the rules that we create for ourselves. And so I think that's a really important just thing to highlight. And conflict resolution is, an inevitable thing that's going to happen. There's always going to be conflicts between people. There's nothing we can do about it, and except for create a system to do that. And so the Compliance Council, once again, is this special purpose council that's meant to create fluid conflict resolution mechanisms, and then to either coordinate their administration or to administer it themselves. And so now we're at the conclusion, guys. So I'm excited to go through some questions. I guess I'll just say that we think that we've finally gotten to a place with this proposal that is conducive to a global network for blockchain services coordinated by mobile network operators that can withstand the test of time through this inclusive ownership model across the whole value chain for Web3 services, and is a good starting point for everyone to order their behavior towards their individual interests and common causes across the board. So we are stoked and thankful for everyone who's reviewed and provide some feedback, and just effectively are looking forward to getting this thing approved, the council's elected, and miners adopting the platform. And that's pretty much everything that I have for now, guys.
Yeah, Parker, just to be cognizant of your time, I know you mentioned you had a 5:30 appointment, so
it's okay. I'll jump on that call afterwards if you guys.
Okay, yeah, it's up to you. I just want to be cautious of holding you over, and but no, so far I've been pinging the community to load some questions up, and there's not many. I think holistically we've explained much better than I think Andrew and I have in the last couple of.
No.
Yeah. I mean, you've lived and breathed this stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I think you guys did awesome.
No, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So let me see. There's one that came in. Depending on the country, for MNOs, for example, don't they still have to have local legislation to navigate in order to participate in a Telcoin network?
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
We make no claims that for any very specific, like any specific, MNO participating. All if they're in a country that doesn't allow them to run a blockchain node, then
okay. Yep,
doubt
yeah.
that's going to happen.
You've set this up specifically for people that legally can participate, and if they want to participate, they can.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other disclaimer I would just say once again is that, and none of the things that I brought to the meeting today are necessarily reflect the opinion of my employer, Telcoin Holdings, and its affiliated entities. It's all just my personal opinion.
Yep.
But
no, and well said. And one more question.
please.
What happens to the unsupported countries that have holders who want to vote on the TGIP1?
So there are unsupported countries they wouldn't, well, I guess they wouldn't, the blockchains that we use are open access across the board. If you don't have a mobile app to delegate from, then you don't have a mobile app to delegate from.
Okay.
But anyone can vote on their
anywhere, essentially, right?
You can vote with your TEL tokens on a regular crypto wallet.
Okay.
There was a question I got asked in DMs. There was more about like the tokenomics and like supply for like these validators, these MNOs. I know in the original kind of white paper and the way it's defined on Telex in the about section, there's a certain percentage of these 100 billion tokens that are allocated to MNOs. The question is more along the lines: are they given a certain amount for joining and participating in that network? Or are they buying externally on the market in order to participate? Like obviously once they get on and start validating, they can buy on the open market to increase the chances of producing blocks on the chain. But just like from an initial perspective, how are those tokens allocated to those validators?
Yeah, so the initial rules for TEL harvesting on Telcoin network are structured so that the TAO, who's responsible for developing, constructing the initial Telcoin network configuration and for driving ecosystem development, has control over the Telcoin network TEL policies until the number of validators, until 10 validators are producing blocks, and until the network is on the mainnet. So both those requirements need to be met for the TEL issuance rules to transfer over to the platform and treasury councils. And as part of the TAO, I'll just say that we're going to openly experiment with driving incentives to drive participation on Telcoin network, while the same allocation formula, the same amount of TEL will be intact, as we are as I said, very openly, we'll be discussing ways that we can incentivize validators to participate at the beginning and over time, and we want to continue to improve those. So I think that it's realistic for that to be possible, and so we've left flexibility within the TAO's ability during this early phase to do things like that. And then I think that there are any number of ways that we should, as a community, once we get to there, focus on the initial issuance incentives for validators. I think we should experiment with that over time, make sure it's equitable and not, totally. It has to be a good system for that. I think that's part of what the TAO's role is during this initial development phase, is to figure out what does that look like.
Okay, no, well put. I have some specific Telex questions if you want to answer some of those.
Go ahead.
One was the community is asking, with the new TEL DFX USDC pool that was kind of created not too long ago, what's the timeline for incentives to kind of be restarted on that pool specifically? I know from the DFX side, like they're going to be going through, I think it's like the Aura protocol for voting and stuff like that for specific DFX emissions, but like for the TEL issuance and the emissions on that side, is that going to be provided before the ratification of the Constitution, or like mostly it's going to be as a proposal afterwards?
Tel DFX USDC emissions. I haven't looked in like the past day or something, Andrew, but we're just waiting on DFX to push those through. I think we maybe already sent them the Tel. That's only for Tel DFX USDC. And what I will note, though, that's important is that because they're of the VDFX model, those contracts and everything, there's no like the snapshot module for that isn't built in, so you will have to be unstaked if you're providing liquidity to those pools. And so yeah, I think we're waiting. Either they're going live, they are live, or we're waiting for them to go live. But within the new Tel X issuance model that reduces the number of pools substantially down. And the reason for that, by the way, is just we want the community to determine and to grow that list, not to burden the community with like generalized incentives to decentralized mechanisms. Difficult. We want to start off as simple as possible and let the community grow after building all this knowledge. But I'm probably getting outside of scope of your question, but basically, I think
it leads into another question I was going to ask specifically GI pools.
So we chose I think 7 pools, evenly distributed across those pools, balancer V2, 80/20s, and have at it. We just don't want. I do not think it would be. I think it would be hard. It would be much more difficult to hand over the expansive list of Telex pools to the community, along with the on-chain mechanisms for distributing incentives, instead of just handing over the staking, or not even handing over, just launching staking contracts via the TAO once it's audited on these 7 pools, and then distributing through those. The Telex management systems and distribution systems for Tel have which I highly recommend if you're like a in the weeds user, to go into the Telex and the Telcoin network and TAN infrastructure pages on the website to figure out how does Tel flow through here? How do they, if I want to change the Tel rules for Telex, what does that practically look like? We've built out systems so that based off of proposals, you can alter those and such that they will automatically continue over time. Unless so we set it up so that issuance will flow and people will harvest it based off of the rules until those rules change, and they'll do it in automated fashion. So
okay, no, that explains it. Perfect. I'm just looking thoughts on kind of what the next proposal is going to look like, what it's going to be.
The next proposal will be the elections after this.
Okay.
Yeah, the next proposal will be taking all of the man, I've used so many filler words in this thing. I know I'm not supposed to. Like whatever.
Don't worry about it.
But let me tell you, I'm just kidding. So we're going to submit all the eligible candidates to the forum for each minor group and each minor council in advance of the election. And then we'll take those names and addresses, propose them to each of them on the forum or on the minor group snapshot that they're going to represent on a council. So there'll be 5 different election proposals, one for each of the councils on all 4 of the snapshots.
Foxy had a question. Will the initial M&O validators need to be approved by the DAO first?
Yeah, so basically the eligibility and authorization rules are articulated and defined in the proposal and on the website for validators. They basically submit their wallet address, their business information, their GSMA membership certification in a proposal to the forum, and then the TAO or the compliance council or any other council member, every council member has authority to submit proposals to the compliance council snapshot. So any council member can then submit that validator or that developer to the compliance council, including the compliance council, to their snapshot, at which point they'll be approved and empowered with the ability to participate in their role.
Awesome. Okay.
And I got to assume any current Telcoin employees have the ability to apply for these council memberships.
Yeah. I'm just like anyone else in the community. I hope that a bunch of smart people from Telcoin do, and I think that we'll, as a voter, vote for the best person for each thing. Like I encourage people to run for positions that are delegated by developers or by validators, especially validators, as we don't have that working contingent on the platform yet. We want to make sure that all of these, we want to minimize the amount of substitution that's necessary and ensure that the community, gets to have a voice across the board.
Makes sense. We're getting a lot of questions about the bank. I know you can't really speak to it too much, so do you want to just tell them?
I'll just walk through that business summary thing that I said earlier.
Sure.
So Telcoin, this discussion, the scope of this discussion is talking about the Telcoin blockchain platform, the Tel crypto token, and the Telcoin Association, which aims to be the blockchain network standard for the telecommunications industry, coordinated by mobile network operators, the broader GSMA, which is the consortium for mobile network operators, and their mobile subscribers. We're one of many participants in this platform and governance model that's decentralized to the association. In addition to that, Telcoin Holdings, the company, operates two complementary businesses. The first one is the Telcoin mobile app. Users can store, send, exchange crypto assets using blockchain protocols, blockchain and DeFi protocols, without relying on third parties, in a secure way, without having to take their private key, cut it up into 1 million pieces, and put it in a bunch of bank vaults. And then the Telcoin Bank aims to be, this is all, we're working towards these things across the board, aims to be the first regulated bank issuer of a USD stablecoin in the world.
Amazing.
Yep.
And that's outside of scope. I'm not speaking directly to those departments as a representative of Telcoin. That's my personal understanding of the representation of those models.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Good. Steve, I don't know about you, but you got any other questions?
I don't. I'm surprised that the community has been a little light, but I think the explanation through what the topic was at hand was thorough, and I think we banged it all out, man. It's
2 hours and 45 minutes in, so to speak, right?
It's not a record. It's not a record, but we.
What is the record?
We did like a 3.5 or almost 4-hour marathon one. I think I almost drank a bottle of whiskey that night. But.
I was going to ask. It sounds like you must have been drinking. But yeah, I mean, look. But look, thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm stoked about this. I love the everything from the community. It just makes me feel like proud of all the work that we've done as a community, and I'm really proud, of the community just generally, and of embracing and wanting to learn about this stuff and providing feedback. You guys are the best, and I really appreciate it. And I'm stoked to bring in this new order system together and experiment and figure it out. None of us have the answers to this type of thing. I certainly don't, but we're all going to work towards it as a community to bring this vision to life. And now I think we have the pieces in place to bring it to a practical reality. In other words, the global network standard for consumer and business use cases is realistically within reach through real adoption of the platform and association, and it is really exciting.
I hope people listen to what you just said, that last monologue there, and just dissect that and listen to it. So if you've been involved since 2018 until today, you can see how important that monologue you just said is, right, as future forward and going into 2024. So with that, I don't want to take up any more of your time, Parker. We're going to wrap this up.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the time. The clarification on the questions for the first vote. Remember, what's the time? What's the exact time that the vote?
9:27 p.m. Central.
There you go. 9:27.
Thursday, December 21st, the winter solstice, guys.
Yep, and I know the community has done a good
Thanks.
job at rallying people to get involved and get encouraging people to get up and connected to the vote. So I think that we've watched that number grow a little bit over the last couple of days. So hopefully participation will continue to grow up to the vote, and yeah, we'll start rocking and rolling on the
That's
governance.
awesome. Yeah, you guys gonna vote for it or what?
Yeah,
You have a good idea of what we're doing.
Great news. Glad to hear that.
Better question is what council are we going for?
Yeah,
I can't wait. I bet. I mean, feel like you got to be Telex council, dude.
That's what I said. Like if
Pinch isn't on the Telex council, like
if Pinch isn't on the Telex council, none of it makes sense, right? So,
you just put in so much like awesome work on this to make this thing, legit over time while we've been trying to bring the whole comprehensive system to the world. And so thank you for that. I appreciate you guys having me on here. It's exciting to be able to speak about all this stuff we've been working on, and to gain communal acceptance is like the best 2023 Christmas present ever.
yeah, I hope you enjoyed this new platform. It's a little more personal, past the traditional space that we do. So this is new. You're the first one on this platform, so hopefully it shows well. I think we put a lot of time to make sure it looks professional.
For all we know, it could be looking real weird on like YouTube or Twitter.
It could. We don't know that. As soon as I hit end, we'll find out. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Thank you to the whole community for jumping in here and listen to us talk. I look forward to the next one, and I'm excited to get this proposal approved, adopted, and get the Telcoin Platform Association out there into the world for further development.
Yeah, right on, man. Yeah, again, appreciate the time. And everybody still watching, thank you for joining us. And hopefully this isn't the last, it's the first, and we'll have more like it. So everybody have a good night.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.